Good evening, everyone. My name is Shad Ali, and I'll be your lead facilitator tonight. I'll introduce a couple of other of our facilitators that will be doing some work with you later on. I would like to announce that, of course, we've started a few minutes late, so thank you for your patience with that. As I say, my name is Shad Ali, and I'd like to wish you and greet you with good evening, bonsoir. I know my brother will correct me in my Cree pronunciation, but I was given Mio Otakusin. So I hope I said that correct, Lyndon. Namaste, Privit, Xin Chao, Ni Hao, Kamusta na, Sawadika or Sawadikap, and Assalamu Alaikum. Welcome tonight. I know some of you came from other events that might have been going on in the community today and yesterday, and also coming straight from work. So we appreciate you giving your time to us here this evening. It looks like most of you found the soup in the, I don't know, beef barley is like one of my favorite soups. So, thank you to TCU Place for that wonderful meal to get us started off for the evening. Yeah, thank you. So if you haven't already, please, at any time in the evening, feel free to head back there and grab a bite to eat and something to drink. There's water, there's a coffee station outside as well. And it's a little tricky sometimes here because the washrooms aren't exactly in front of our meeting rooms, right? So where you checked in, that little desk, when you go back up that ramp to where that desk is, to your left of that desk where you checked in is where the men's and women's washrooms are, right? So I encourage you to do that. If we should need to vacate the space, our closest route is actually up that same ramp and out the first door that you see, okay? So I want you to be aware of that as well. To get us started off in a good way, I always feel embarrassed to call him anything but my brother, because we've gotten to know each other fairly well over the last several years here. But let me introduce him in this way. He is a citizen of Thunderchild First Nation, Plains Cree, in Treaty 6, and he has roots in Cowaching First Nation, which is in Fort Frances, Ontario, I understand as well, which is in Treaty 3. His education background, however, which doesn't get shared often enough, I think, but it does include work or studies in social work and in Indian studies, and he's dabbled a little bit in law, I understand, as well. So please help me welcome our traditional knowledge keeper, Lyndon Linklater.
Thank you. All right, good evening, everybody. I'm so happy to be here. Yeah, as Shad was mentioning, on my late father's side, we come from northwestern Ontario. In English, they call us Ojibwe people. I don't know if you've ever heard of Ojibwe. Yeah, there's lots of Ojibwe people in Ontario. Oh my, lots. And as you go south and west, they call us different names, even though we're the same people. So for example, in the United States of America, they call us Chippewa. And here on the prairies, they call us Soto. But we are all the same people. We're Soto, we're Ojibwe, we're Chippewa, like we speak the same language. So we make up a huge geographical area. So that's where I come from on my father's side, the Ojibwe people. We have our own language. And if you ask us, what do you call yourself in your own language? We will say Anishinaabe. Can you say Anishinaabe? Very good. Long time ago, some English guy came up to us and said, hey, what do you call yourself? We said Anishinaabe. He said, oh, Ojibwe. So that's how that name kind of came along. Yeah, and so I'm a Anishinaabe on my dad's side. On my mom's side, we come from what is now Saskatchewan, Treaty 6 territory. In English, they call us a Cree people. And in our province, there's actually 3 different kinds of Cree. We have a Plains Cree, Woodland Cree, and Swampy Cree. And like we're all Cree, we speak the language a little bit differently. I want to acknowledge our grandmother over there. She is a woodland Cree. And give us a wave there, Kokum. Give us a wave. Yeah. She's a woodland Cree. So we can understand each other when we talk our language, but it's like a little bit different. And what they figured out is in our Plains Cree, a lot of our words will, like in English, will have the letter Y in it. When you spell it, the word in English, like whatever word it is. So for example, what we call ourselves in our language, Nehio. Can you say Nehio? Yeah. Now if you spell Nehio in English, there's going to be a letter Y in there. So the Woodland Cree, they don't have a letter Y. It gets switched out to a TH. So if you ask our Kokomo there, what do you call yourself? She will say Nehitho. You see that instead of a Nehio, it's a Nehitho. So you understand? So that's a Woodland Cree, yeah? So how the joke goes, I went to the SPCA and I rescued a cat. And I brought the cat home, fed it milk, gave it cat food. I started to pet it. Right away I knew it was a Woodland Cree cat because it was going mithou, mithou. The Swampy Cree, they have the letter N in their language, so they'll call themselves Nehino. See, so those are three Cree-speaking groups of people in our province. So we have a Nehitho, a Nehio, and a Nehino. But all the other words will be the same in the language. It's just certain words. And the Cree make up a huge geographical area as well. There's Crees in Quebec, in Ontario, Manitoba, Saskatchewan, and Alberta, and United States of America as well. So we make up a large geographical area. And like all Indigenous cultures in Canada and United States, tobacco is a very special plant in our culture. And it's a long, long tradition. Whenever you ask someone to come and share their knowledge, or to get advice, it's a tradition you offer them a tobacco. So that's what was presented to me this afternoon to come and start us off in a good way. And looking around the room, there's lots of diversity here, and it's so good to see diversity. As an Indigenous person living in Canada, and I know I'm speaking to the converted already here, but I'm gonna tell you this message anyways. It's so important to keep our culture. It's so important to keep our languages. So I want to encourage you all to continue that. Teach your children your culture. Teach your children your languages. There's so much beauty in culture and in language. And at the same time, we can all be Canadians, eh? And so there's a balance in there. And it's so good to see the diversity here. So with that, I want to welcome you to this event, Immigration Partnership Saskatoon, and there's other speakers coming, dignitaries here. So I thank you for offering me this tobacco to start things off in a good way. With that, I want to thank TCU Place for the awesome meal that we got to share, and the organizers for doing this, and I look forward to maybe visiting some of you in the future again in other areas and programs and capacities. Saskatoon's a beautiful place to live. Saskatchewan's a beautiful place to live. It's up to us to make this province what it's going to become. It's up to us to make this country, make it become what it's going to become. And I want to have a place where it doesn't matter what color skin you have, what language you speak, how you dress. It doesn't matter. That's the kind of country I want to be in. You agree with me? All right. So if elected, I promise that I will. Anyways, with that, thank you so much. Have a good evening. Hi, hi.
I hope you heard what he said at the end, because he says it so quick that it's hardly ever noticed. At the end, he said, hi, hi, right? Which is a way of saying thank you It's a way of saying, join me, or celebration. It's all of those kinds of things wrapped up in one, as I understand. So, hi, indeed, my brother. Thank you so much. I wanted to share with you as well that it's a very brief program. Jasmine, who you'll meet in a little bit, said, did we print programs? And I said, it looked really short. I didn't think we needed to print it, but maybe I did. So if you do need it printed, I'll apologize right now in advance. And maybe you can do exactly that and take a picture of it with your phone so you can remind yourself. But it's just a couple of things that we'll have. Our welcome and orientation that we're doing right now. You'll have a presentation from Jasmine in a bit. And then we'll break out and do some conversations. I see that I put 6 o'clock twice there, so it's not quite. And then we'll have a bit of time for you to network and have some conversation with one another. And then we'll wrap up at the end. So that's what you can look forward to coming up, okay? So we'll move fairly quickly through things now. And what I have been told by Jasmine is her presentation is a little bit shorter than she had originally planned. So that part will go a little bit faster, and that means we'll have more time for the breakout conversations as well, right? So now, MP Brad Redekop is here with us. He is the federal member of parliament for the riding of Saskatoon West and the Associate Shadow Minister for Immigration, Refugees, and Citizenship. After being elected in 2019, Brad served on the Environment Committee, where he was able to help secure funding for Saskatoon's Meewasin Valley Authority. You guys know where Meewasin Valley is, right? Yeah, okay, good. If you haven't, by all means, take a walk. And I'll do a little plug, because during the Winter Shines Festival, coming up in a little bit, Sask Outdoors will actually be doing some orientation work where you get to experience the Meewasin Valley Authority as well during that. So he was able to secure that funding for Meewasin Valley Authority. He's currently a member of the Immigration Committee, working to ensure our immigrants are respected and valued. In his role as an Associate Shadow Minister for Immigration, Refugees, and Citizenship, Brad is currently working on reuniting families, welcoming newcomers to Canada, and cutting government red tape to improve our immigration system. He's also Vice Chair for the Standing Committee on Citizenship and Immigration. Please join me in welcoming MP Brad Redekop. Do you mind? I'm okay if you do that. Does that work?
Okay, I'm a little taller here. Get that figured out. Well, welcome everybody. It's great for me to be here. It's an honor to be here again to take part in this community forum. And I want to thank Jasmine and the whole team of people that have put together this evening. I know you're going to have a really good time learning, and we're learning from each other. And Lyndon, thanks so much for that intro. And I think you should run for something. I think you got a good shot, but just not against me. Just that's got to be clear. And thanks to everyone here for all the work that you do. I know that everybody works very hard helping newcomers and refugees in our community to try to make Saskatoon a real place of home for everybody. There's lots of familiar faces in the room, and hearing your perspectives and seeing the work you do is very valuable to me, because then it allows me to speak confidently when I'm in Ottawa in Parliament about immigration, and especially from a Saskatchewan point of view, because so much of what we hear from immigration in Canada is based on a GTA, a Toronto, Vancouver, Montreal perspective, where a lot of people are. But there are significant issues that we have in their smaller centers like Saskatoon, so it's good. It's very helpful for me. I want to speak briefly on some of the immigration changes that we've seen in Canada, and then also some expectations that I have about the future. So first, it's pretty clear to pretty much everybody that we've had our recent immigration intake levels have been too high. And because the country's grown 9% in just 4 years, which is the fastest pace in the entire G7 countries. The problem is, though, that we don't have the housing, the jobs, and the health care to match with that kind of growth. And so as a result, people are suffering. Cost of living has gone way up, and public opinion regarding immigration is very negative. It's fallen to an all-time low. And that's unusual, because Canada has always been very, very supportive of immigration. So just in a few years here, we've lost that. And unfortunately, the current government, I think, waited too long to correct this. And so now they have had to take large, sweeping actions that you guys have all seen, particularly with study permits and temporary foreign workers. So all of this creates instability in our colleges and universities, in immigrant communities, and in settlement organizations as well. It's my opinion that the mismanagement of immigration levels by the Liberal government has broken this 100-year-long consensus that we had on immigration in Canada, where Canadians have historically supported it. Now, it's not the fault of immigrants, it's the fault of the government. Now, as everyone knows, it's quite likely that there will be an election this spring, and quite likely there'll be a new government, a new Conservative government. But I'd like to share my thoughts on, if that were to happen, what you might expect from a Conservative government, because I know lots of people have questions, they often ask me this. So first of all, I would say we all need to get used to lower immigration numbers, because what the current Liberal government has done by lowering them, I think that's going to be here for a while. These cuts will very likely be maintained as we seek to reestablish this balance between newcomers coming in and jobs, housing, and healthcare on the other side. We need to make sure that we can maintain that level. And with these lower levels, we must also examine who we're attracting to our country. We'll focus on bringing in people who add the most value to our country, particularly those with skills that we need. And our promise to Canadians is that our immigration system should be a win-win. Good for the country and good for the newcomer as well. So with that in mind, Conservatives have some ideas to improve the immigration system in ways that benefit both the newcomer and Canada. And a key area in this is foreign credential recognition, something that I sought to address by introducing a private member's bill, which unfortunately died when the government prorogued Parliament, but it is something that we're putting into our Conservative platform. So here's the problem, and I'm sure you've heard it often, and I was just talking about it with one of you tonight. We have capable professionals, doctors, dentists, nurses, civil engineers, who come to Canada on the promise to work in their field. But once they get here, they're unable to work in their field because they can't get a license to practice. And as a result, we have doctors driving taxis, right? We've all heard that. And this is very frustrating because we actually have enough foreign-trained physicians in Canada that we could pretty much solve our problem if only they could be licensed. And it's true of many other professions as well. So our leader, Pierre Poilievre, is proposing the Blue Seal program to fix this. So we will establish a national licensing for doctors and other professionals so that there's only one standard from coast to coast. And we'll provide interest-free loans for our immigrants to meet these licensing standards. We'll institute a 60-day service standard for licensing boards to provide newcomers the exact steps they need to get licensed, because often it's unclear what actually has to happen, what upskilling is needed, and those kinds of things. It's a big, complicated task, but it's something that we need to undertake because it's the way that we can make newcomers successful in our country, and it is clearly a win-win because it's obviously good for the newcomer to be working in their field, but it's good for our country to have that person working as a physician or a veterinarian or a civil engineer or whatever it might be. There's lots of other work to do too in areas like processing delays, I'm sure you've all experienced that, asylum seekers, and many other things. So there's lots to do. But with all of you in the room, I know that you all play a very important role in this work. You all help newcomers to Canada, to work in Canada, and to become Canadians. And this won't change because Canada needs immigrants. We need immigrants. We will always be a welcoming country for immigrants seeking a better life. Canada welcomed my grandparents here about 100 years ago, the same as many of you in this room. So thanks for all the work that you do with the immigrants in our community. I hope tonight will be very productive and we'll have some really good conversations about how we can all work together to create better opportunities in Saskatoon. And again, thanks to Jasmine for organizing this and for inviting me to speak. And to everyone, thanks for all of you for being here, and thank you for listening. Thanks.
Thank you, MP Redekop. You know, it's really funny. You know, you and I have talked at a couple of citizenship ceremonies as an example, and I sometimes get a little too emotional when I think about my own immigration to Canada and my citizenship ceremony and those kind of things. But I did get asked that question on one occasion that was a simple little thing that you mentioned, which was that so many of us from around different parts of the world want to come to Canada for a better life. A better life. And what I would say is that it's perhaps a different life. Because we may have left better lives where we were And circumstances may have driven us to have to seek out a place like Canada that we're hoping will welcome us with open arms, right? So it isn't always that we're looking for a better life, but sometimes it's a different life. Because while life might have been good where we were, as I say, circumstances may have caused us to kind of come somewhere else. And I know you know that very well. So thank you for the work that you're continuing to do on behalf of immigrants, on behalf of all of those people who are choosing to make Canada their home, whatever their circumstances are. The other thing I want to just pick up on that, Lyndon mentioned, you talked about language and you talked about perspective. And oddly enough, tonight, those are two of the themes that we will actually explore: Indigenous perspectives and language, and their importance to newcomers when they choose to settle in this country. Right, so if you do have the chance to stay and spend some more time with us, it'd be great to get you to participate in that. And you'll hear a little bit more from Jasmine coming up. You know, I've heard her speak at a number of things, and I'm yet to hear a proper, what I consider a proper introduction for her. So she was born in Moose Jaw, but fortunately for us, some 15 plus years ago, and her dad is in the room. I won't point him out, but you can find him. She chose to make Saskatoon her home. Her background includes work with the Canadian Embassy in Washington, D.C., and the Saskatoon Police Service as the crime-free multi-housing coordinator. She holds a Master's of Arts degree in political studies and international relations. And she did go to the University of Saskatchewan. But what I think a lot of people don't know about her is that she is actually a multi-medium artist who, I understand, paints in oils and acrylics. I didn't know that about you. Look forward to seeing some of that work. And watercolors, of course, as well. In her free time, she's currently, of course, in her free time, she does that paint work. She is currently, of course, the IPSK coordinator. So please join me in welcoming Jasmine Calix. And bear with me a second while I bring up her presentation for her. I didn't put it in presentation view for you, but do you need it or you? Oh, God, okay. Hang tight. Entertain yourselves. I need to doctor something, which means I need my glasses. I think we had to go to presentation mode or something for that, right? Usually over here. Center view, right? And then you should be able to, from beginning, let's just see here. Right? And then you're advancing there, right? You good? Beautiful.
All right, we fixed it. Thanks for coming out, everyone. I appreciate everyone braving all the snow to be here tonight. And I want to thank you for all your support of Immigration Partnership in the past, today, and the future. I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the work we've done over the last 4 years, and some of you will recognize yourselves in some of the projects that we've worked on and some of the work that you've contributed to over these last 4 years. So I'll start with a little introduction of who we are. We are one of 86 local immigration partnerships in Canada. This is a federal government initiative by Immigrants, Refugees, Citizenship Canada, by IRCC. In our case, it's hosted by the City of Saskatoon, and there are actually six other LIPs, as they're called, in Saskatchewan. And what we do is we work together to facilitate the successful settlement and integration of newcomers to our city. And we do this through a multi-sectoral partnership. And so that's made up of a partnership council, which is made up of some high-level executives in different sectors in the city. So things like police and schools, healthcare, ethnocultural groups, and so on. We also have an immigrant advisory table that is made up of immigrants with lived experience, and they help give us really valuable advice. And on an ad hoc basis, we have working groups that work on our projects and different ideas that come out from the council and the advisory table. And you see some of them here: employment, language, social inclusion, and civic engagement, and leadership. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the major projects we've worked on the last 4 years. The first one was employment research, and MP Redekop here mentioned employment as a huge barrier, and this is really important because internationally trained and experienced immigrants come here. There are many of you in the room today, and are really hoping to find work in their fields and to be registered and certified and licensed in their fields. And it's so important to people to be able to work in their fields so they can contribute to our economy. We have a tax-based economy, so that's really important that they're contributing, and then it also gives them a sense of purpose as they in their new home. And so with our research, and there you'll see some QR codes throughout. We have a lot of the documents are on our website, and so feel free to scan those. So we interviewed internationally trained and experienced immigrants who are seeking employment. We also interviewed the regulatory bodies. And I will come back to that. And what people said was that they received inconsistent information from various sources. Now, we were just looking at the regulated professions, and that there was a need to filter through multiple, sometimes competing information sources to find this information on how to get a job in the regulated fields. And so there was just this need for clarity and for direction about which regulatory body to contact and what steps to follow. And so after that research, our solution to this was to launch our employment resource guide. I know many of you have this in your settlement agencies and your schools, and you're using this guide. And basically what the guide does is it lays out the 73 regulated professions, and it lays out all the steps required to obtain professional employment in these professions. We also, I'll mention as an aside, we inspired the Calgary Local Immigration Partnership to create one for Alberta, and so now they have one that looks pretty similar to ours, which is fine, and they use one for Alberta too. And we have a few left. There might be some on the table out there, but you can always just scan it on our website too. But this is what it looks like. Everything's alphabetically organized by profession. And then you'll see here, for example, on the accountant page, it shows you the contact information, and then it really lays out all the steps. And so it's really helpful for immigrants. I know like the chamber was using them as well, because non-immigrants can use this resource as well, because they're also looking for jobs in the regulated professions. And another aspect of our research was Canadian experience. And this was frequently highlighted as a barrier as well when we interviewed people. And it's contrary to the admissions process, where they successfully gain admittance through the NOC system, which gives them points for training, for credentials, and for experience. And so when we saw that, we decided to tackle this barrier as well, and we looked at a legislative angle for doing this. So what we found was that in Ontario in 2022, they passed legislation that the term Canadian experience can no longer be used in the regulated professions. And this actually came out of an Ontario Human Rights Commission ruling 10 years prior that the term Canadian experience was discriminatory. And so that's what led Ontario to do what they did. And so then we decided to look closer to home and see what was being done here in Saskatchewan in that regard. And provincially, there was the Bill 81, the Labor, Mobility, and Fair Registration Practices Act. And this one really stated that regulatory bodies should not require internationally trained applicants to complete additional training and experience where they've already demonstrated competence. And so we met with our deputy minister at the time, Minister Repsky, and told him what was going on in Ontario, and maybe that's something you want to do here. MP Redekop did mention his bill earlier, Bill 286, and that one states that federal and provincial ministries can work together to equate the international and the Canadian experience. This one has, because it's federal, has that federal implication for federally regulated professions. And so we had a chat with him too. And, these conversations are very ongoing. It takes time to talk about these things and see if they would consider, some stronger language of not requiring that Canadian experience. Since then, because we started these conversations in 2022, just last summer, British Columbia had passed their own act, just like Ontario, where they removed the requirement for Canadian experience for 18 regulators as well. So you'll see there social workers, agrologists, veterinarians, notary publics, and that translates into 29 different occupations. So I'll just leave that up for you to take a look there. So yeah, we think it's really promising work that's happening across the country in different provinces, and that's really encouraging for immigrants who are moving to Canada. That's some hope that their degrees will be recognized. And thanks, MP Redekop, for mentioning what sort of plans that you have as well. And so on the more fun side, so we also do other things. The last 23 and 24, we spearheaded Welcoming Week in Saskatoon, and this is an international event that happens for 10 days in September every year, and the goal is to welcome immigrants to their new homes, and really it's for all people to get together. It's not just for immigrants. The way that they feel welcome in their homes is that they can meet with other residents, other Canadian citizens, with Indigenous people, and really feel that sense of home. And so we met with our planning committee made up of members of all of those other IPSK groups I mentioned before. And we planned some events across these 10 days. And so you'll see here there was something very informational, a neighborhood connections fair with many agencies from across the city, and this was held at a mall, and people could come and learn and get information from agencies, from the police, from the libraries. We also did a Prairie Lily River cruise, really good chance for people to just experience Saskatchewan and the water in the summer and the summertime. And that was really fun. We also had a cultural mosaic and a safety fair going on at River Landing at the same time. And safety was, again, a really good way for people to learn about safety things in the community, like police and SGI and SASK prevention. And then there was also time we did some sport-related things. So we had Tai Chi and yoga in the park. And we always had really good weather for those. We had something for our seniors as well, an opportunity for them to get together, learn from an elder, take part in yoga, and also learn about fraud again from police, because that's really important. And we did hoops. We did basketball 2 years in a row. Last year it was with the Huskies. And the year before it was with the Rattlers. You can see a picture there of Mayor Clark with he came out and shot hoops with us the first year. And then we had a citizenship ceremony as well, where there were 125 different citizens that got their citizenship. I think some of you were in the audience today as well, so thank you for coming. And at the same time, there was a newcomer art show going on because a lot of newcomer artists don't really have an opportunity to show their art. And so we wanted to give them an opportunity to do that. And then we finished off our week with a skating program. Lots of immigrant children got to skate for the first time, and so that was great. And the Hilltops, the family game day was our last was the last event of Welcoming Week. So there were a couple other projects that we worked on. One was welcoming spaces, and so I know a lot of you may be in ethnocultural groups here in Saskatoon, and sometimes you want to have an event and you want to rent out a space to have that event. And so this was something that came up at our partnership council table, and there were issues in the community with accessing and affording some of these spaces. So there was a report published, and that's also on our site there. So some of the, I'll leave that up a little longer. So out of this, we did an environmental scan of what's available in Saskatoon, what's available within the city, and then we also looked at some other cities that were similar in size. With Burnaby, we looked at Calgary, Kitchener, and Vaughan, Ontario as well. And then what we came up with were short-term recommendations and long-term recommendations. And so the short-term are about 1 to 3 years. And these recommendations are having an online platform, for instance, like an interactive map where everything is searchable, and having a free multi-purpose space just for ethnocultural organizations. And then perhaps having a network for what we're calling ECOs, so that they could be more unified in their actions. And with our long-term recommendations, these are 4 to 10 years out, and so these ones are having like a strategic plan, which builds on that network, and also establishing a policy to support them. Things like fee waivers and tiered pricing for the different groups, and also a kitchen. So we found in our research, food is really important to these get-togethers, to celebrations, and so establishing that community commercial kitchens and where they can prep halal food and kosher food there as well. And so these were all the findings from the entire project. And so one thing that we noticed too is that they're really large groups, and then they're also really small groups. So maybe that's where the tiered pricing comes in, because then people can pay based on how much money they bring in as a group. One thing that we're working on, since we're currently part of the city, I met with some of the senior managers in recreation and community development, and we're looking at things like translating the contracts into the different languages that are spoken in Saskatoon, even especially French, since that's our second language. The contracts can be really, like there's a lot of legalese and it's really dense, and so maybe having a plain language version or just a checklist to go along with the contract would be really helpful as well. Or just even summary documents that simplify the rules and regulations. And so those are sitting with management in the city, and so that's a really good sign that this project is moving along, and people are looking at ways to help improve these spaces. I will mention too a couple of, with our working groups, projects that just kind of took place. So last year was a huge election year, and so we met with our social inclusion and civic engagement working group to really help figure out how to engage immigrants in the electoral process. And what we did achieve was getting some questions added to the civic election candidate forums, and those were questions around things that were immigrant related, racism, housing, transit, climate change, and financial issues. And ongoing, like a work in progress right now with our language working group, is they are working on improving language accessibility for newcomers who are being turned away from businesses for not speaking English. And so that's an ongoing project as well. You'll see on your tables in front of you like a green thing that opens, and so that's our settlement guide, and that's brand new. It's also available on our website. The way this came about is when we're out in the community or we are talking to people or people drop by our office, they wonder what do the different settlement agencies offer. And here in Saskatoon, we have 4 settlement agencies, and they offer so many programs. And so I met with all of the executive directors of the settlement agencies, and we created this guide, and so it shows all the offerings. And then it folds right back up when you're done. So yeah, so those are available. And do let us know if you'd like some for your business or for your clients or anything like that. And you can take it home with you also. As I said, we're often out in the community. World Refugee Day. We do a volunteer appreciation for all the volunteers that help us during Welcoming Week. And you've seen some of you are here in the audience today, so thank you for coming. Went to Children's Day as well this past summer. And just on our website and on our socials, we did a couple of social media projects. We like to highlight our IAT members for some of the work that they do. And for Asian Heritage Month and for Black History Month, we've highlighted them and talked about what the month means to them. We also did a Stories of Newcomers project, and this was around newcomers who started businesses in Saskatoon or who were very successful in the business world. And so there are a few newcomer stories on our site as well. Yeah, so we've been pretty busy for the last 4 years. Many of you know that, so IPSK, as I said in the beginning, has been hosted by the City of Saskatoon for the past 8 years. And our funder is Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship Canada, IRCC. So IRCC has decided to move and some of you may already know this, so it's not news to you, to move the hosting of IPSK from the city to the United Way as of April 1st. So Sherry Benson, she's the CEO of the United Way, and she's actually been involved with IPSK for many years. She was even one of the co-chairs of our partnership council for some years as well. So as we go into our breakout sessions, we want to hear from you about your expectations and what you want to see from IPSK as it moves into this new iteration with a new host. And so what you say is really important, and we want you to know that what you say will be placed in a comprehensive report, and that report will be made public to everyone who participated today and just public in general. It'll also be passed on to the United Way as well, so that they can learn how to proceed with this new iteration. So your feedback is welcome, and thank you guys all for coming tonight.
Thank you, Jasmine. So again, give me a second or two here so I can switch. Okay, so, again, little things, sometimes they come up, right? And when Jasmine was talking about ethnocultural communities having challenges with access to venues, but also venues that maybe they can't do certain things in them. One of the things that we did was we held some Zoom calls that for folks who couldn't come tonight, they could give us some of their perspectives and insights. We did an online discussion board that they could do that there as well. And so that was all leading up to tonight. But, you know, one of the interesting things that came up on one of the Zoom calls was that the work that we're doing to try to provide access to newcomers and immigrant communities to spaces and to be able to practice their cultural traditions, that work might actually also bolster the work that's needed on behalf of our Indigenous brothers and sisters. Because sometimes to really practice tradition, right, in an indoor space, even to do a smudge, can create significant challenges at times, is what we've experienced, right? I mean, a simpler thing is you start doing a smudge in the middle of a hall and the fire alarms go off, right? Those kind of things. So, you know, we have a lot of work to do, certainly in the newcomer and immigrant and settlement space. But what we start seeing is that as we engage in that dialogue, in those conversations, there are ways for us to connect this to our Indigenous brothers and sisters in other communities as well. And so our fight, if you will, our challenges, might be more similar than we think, in fact. And so as we work through solutions for some of these, it's actually important that we look at all of the different communities that might be impacted and affected. So thank you very much, Jasmine. And as you can see, you know, there's a lot of work that IPSK has been doing over the last couple of years. You know, they're a pretty small team. You've met Jasmine. I think somewhere she might still be out at the desk. Oh, no, she's at the door. Some of you may have met Becky Ward as well, and Becky's here too, is one of the other staff. Yeah, let's give them a round of applause for both of them for that tremendous work that they've been doing. And as Jasmine said, they don't do it alone. You know, they have all of these advisory groups and members of the community that actually work with them and help to create the brain trust, if you will, that brings that there, right? And as she closed, you know, she really started talking as well about, so what's next, right? That was a good look back. But remember that tonight is equally about looking forward. And so it is one of the things we wanted to bring you together for, is to give us that perspective, to help to provide some insights. And we've been collecting that insight. I mean, IPSK hosted a survey back in about August or so, and some of the work started developing. And actually, out of that work, IPSK identified 5 themes that seem to be recurring, right? And I'll share those as a reminder for you in a second. But what we wanted to do with tonight was really provide an opportunity for us now, looking, and those of you who had registered to come, which includes all of you here, you may have received an email this morning that sent you a document, a PDF document. Pardon me. And in that document, what we did was summarized the key points that came out of, there was very little that we didn't include, actually, that was submitted on the online board, as well as things that came up in those Zoom conversations that we hosted. So there really was, you know, that online board gave people 24/7 for 14 days, I think, access. You could get in there anytime that it was convenient for you to add your thoughts and insights. And then we also hosted the Zoom calls, which were hosted at different points in the day. So some people might have been available in the morning or lunch hour or afternoon or evening. We were able to try to accommodate that as best we could. So all of that insight is in that document, right? We're going to ask you to use that as some of the context for your conversations now as we move into the breakout conversations, right? So what we have done is set this up so that you can have, you know how often you get invited to a consultation and they tell you we'll provide a lot of time for you to have conversation, and then they give you 5 minutes? Have you been to a couple of those? Yeah. We didn't want to do that, right? And so you've got about an hour and a half to have some conversation here on these 5 topics. So you'll see there's a flip chart board across the room here to my left, your right. Then you'll see one on the far wall opposite to where I'm standing, right? And then you'll see a third one to my right, to your left. Those 3 boards have one of the 5 themes listed on it, and it then has the central question we want you to tackle and have some conversation about, and then provide us with some insight. That means there are 2 remaining ones, because I said 5, right? So we have room B adjacent to us, and then room A adjacent to that. So the other 2 themes will be in room B and in room A. And again, we did that so that you could go in there, have some conversation, get as loud as you need to get, mostly, and have that dialogue. What we've also done is, and I know we'll have some helpers to, as we start moving to our conversations, we'll have some Post-it notes. They're a little bit larger, and we'll have pens available for you. What we want you to do is when you have that conversation and you have an idea, we'd like for you to put one idea, one priority that you've seen that needs to be tackled, put one idea per Post-it note so that we can capture that, right? And that way, if there's plenty of Post-it notes. Use them all. That'd be ideal, right? And then what we'll do is we'll take a break, and you will get a chance to visit with one another. I think we'll have cookies, I hear. Cookies, there you go. And if you haven't seen it yet, did everybody find the coffee station? You didn't? It's just outside the room. But here's what I want you to look for. The coffee is fabulous in here, but Becky, just along a little bit further on, we have the special station, right? She's shaking her head, yes. There's like hot chocolate mixes and little flavored things for your coffees. It's an amazing little cart there that has some surprises for you. So please take the time as well, whether now or in that break, to enjoy some of that as well. I do see that there is soup and sandwiches left, so please, if you want to take some and go to one of the breakout conversations, please avail yourself of those. Okay. Clear as mud? Jasmine? Yeah, makes sense? We're ready to go? Okay, so 3 themes in this one, then the other 2 themes are in the other 2 rooms. What we're hoping is that you will visit each of the themes, okay? So spend, 10, 15 minutes at each one, then rotate around to another one. The facilitators will be there. They are in the room, so I'll ask them to just stand if we can introduce them. So Kelly Goyer, I see to my left back there, is one of our facilitators. Kelly, which room are you going to be in? Room A. And what's that theme? So Indigenous Perspectives, Room A with Kelly. And then Reggie Ramlochan. Reggie, which room are you in? Language is the theme right next door in room B, right? And then we have Garnet Weber. What's your theme, Garnet? Social inclusion and civic engagement, right? And then we have 2 others here, I think employment and leadership. And I'll get my exercise in today walking between the 2 of those, okay? So again, let me just remind you of those themes. Social inclusion and civic engagement, that's where Garnet is. Leadership and employment are in this room. Language and Indigenous perspectives in the other 2 rooms, right? When you go to those, I said we have a central question for you. This is that central question. With every single one of those themes, the central question is, what one thing relevant to the theme you're discussing at that moment, when done well, will make a meaningful difference for newcomers to Saskatoon and deserves IPSK focus and attention. In other words, this is about priority setting, right? When you go to your room and you go to that theme, we will have the question there for you as well, okay? Ready to go?